Hello, everyone. My name is Julianne Meyer. I am the host of Own Your Wellness, and I'm excited. I'm always excited, but today's guest is probably going to be one of your favorites because we are going to be talking about infamous body types, fat, you name it. It's all these questions that we always want answered. And finally, there might just be a way that's going to work for you. So without further ado, let me introduce our guest, Mark Nelson. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me, Julie.
So glad to have you here. So why don't you tell us first a little bit about yourself and your own wellness journey?
So I am the lead scientific researcher at Fellow One Research. My journey actually began way back at age 8. I was out on the soccer field. I was actually a star soccer player. I was on a state championship team, and I was out on the field during shirts off soccer practice one day, and I realized there's something weird about my body. There's something odd about it. It doesn't look like the image that you see in any human body anatomy book. It's lacking muscle and muscle mass everywhere. And because obesity was common in our family, no one really gave it a second thought. But I gave it a lot of thought, especially as I got to age 10 and then hit puberty and more fat grew. And every time I went in to see the doctor, he would say, well, he's normal. He's within his safe BMI weight range, and that's all they cared about. No one cared that I was lacking muscle and muscle mass. So my journey carried through into my college years, and once I was out, I basically started the research at Fellow One Research, and that's a brief overview, and I'm happy to go into it in more depth as you'd like.
Well, I just think that you, first of all, that is the thing that I think is the kiss of death. You are in the normal range. That doesn't mean that you're healthy. That doesn't mean you're optimal. That means that that's the average, and they got to pick some numbers, you know?
Right.
So, sorry, go ahead.
So there's this thing now that's called normal weight obesity. And there's also skinny fat. And these are two newer terms that have only been around now for about a decade. When I was growing up and dealing with all my issues, these terms did not exist. And so normal weight obesity is essentially having too much fat on your body, even though you are within your safe BMI weight range.
Mm-hmm.
And it carries the same general risks as the disease of obesity. And so I have dealt with normal weight obesity my entire life. And one of the downsides of lacking muscle and muscle mass is I was a really good sports player when I was young. Mm-hmm. But because I lacked all that muscle and muscle mass, I couldn't keep up with soccer because I couldn't run as fast, and I didn't have the muscle and muscle mass to keep up with all the players on the field. And one of the analogies that I use is I basically had a Dodge Caravan in terms of a human body. I was lacking muscle and muscle mass all over, and I had strong tendencies towards skinny fat and putting fat on my body easily. Mm-hmm. And I was out on the soccer field, and I was playing against the David Beckhams, the Lamborghinis. And the only reason that I wasn't able to compete with them, according to my parents and everyone else, including the doctors, was I just wasn't working hard enough. But it's a fact that there's no way that a Dodge Caravan would ever beat a Lamborghini in a race. There's just zero probability of that happening. But those are the standards that I was being held to. And those are the standards that everyone's being held to. When you go and you see your doctor and you have your annual checkup, you're being held to the standard, which is the only scientific standard, and that is the human body anatomy book, Biotype 1, that is found in any scientifically approved human body anatomy book. And that's one of the standards, and I'm happy to talk about more, but I'll sort of pause here and see if I'm making any sense.
No, absolutely. I love the term TOFI. I'm sure you've heard of that one. Thin on the outside, fat on the inside. That was me. I can totally relate because I've always been small, but that doesn't mean I wasn't fat. So I was tiny and then I started losing weight. I said, oh my God, I'm 30% body fat. That's ridiculous. And I was like a size 4. But so nobody believed it. I could tell.
and so on your body, do you deal now with any skinny fat on your body where there should be muscle and muscle mass? So cellulite, thin fat, crepey skin, loose skin, saggy skin, normal weight.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. These are all things that I think a lot of people deal with, and they just feel like there's nothing that they can do about it.
So, and unfortunately, there's a little bit of truth in that, because skinny fat is a tough thing to get rid of. It's not really, according to science and medical doctors, it's not really possible to get rid of it right now. That there is no FDA approved product or procedure that gets rid of any type of skinny fat, including cellulite. You can reduce it and make it look better, quote unquote, but you can't really get rid of it. Now, we are working on exercises here that they are experimental, but the idea is to get rid of it. But it's not really our focus right now.
Mm-hmm.
Really, our focus is coming to terms with what your body type is, and that is a genetic thing. Your body type is based on genetics. So my body type was lacking muscle and muscle mass all over it for no other reason but because of genetics, because obesity runs in our family. And so for me, it was simply figuring out why. So, and what can I do about that? So my first step was when I was in my teens, I started lifting weights probably too early. But I found that didn't really help much because I had so much skinny fat on my body that it was just really hard to put on any real muscle mass. When I got to college, I was hanging out with some guys who were all Biotype 1s. They were all muscle. And I was determined to figure out what was so different and how to make my body more like theirs. So I followed their diet. I followed their supplements. I followed their exercise routine. And nothing that I did helped out with making things much better. I basically went from having a sparrow's chest to having a crow's chest. So it's just a larger bird chest, right? And by that point, I was really discouraged, excuse me. And that was really when I began my research. So I'm happy to talk more about the 3 body type standards that mainstream science and medical doctors use, but I'll pause here and see if you have any questions for me.
Nope, I just want you to get right into it.
All right. So mainstream science and medical doctors have 3 scientific body type standards that they use. There's only one mainstream science body type standard. That is the Standard Scientific Human Body Anatomy Book, Biotype 1. It's the same image that you can find in any scientific human body anatomy book, and it's the image that when you go and you see your doctor, that's what they are judging you by. Okay, and so that image is not accurate because skinny fat is a very real thing, and even though it's only come to be in terms of being recognized by science in the last decade or so, you can go up on, say, the Mayo Clinic website, and you can see that they have a whole page on normal weight obesity and such, or you can go to Healthline and see that they have information on skinny fat. You can go to our website, and we have plenty of information on skinny fat. But because it's only been around for a decade or so, it hasn't been taken into consideration when doctors are doing your annual checkup. They're again using that Biotype 1, but they're not taking into account skinny fat because it's not a variable that is currently used. So the first body type standard is the Biotype 1. The second standard is the body mass index. It has been around since the 1800s, but it did not become the official standard until 1985. Oh. And the reason that the body mass index is not accurate is because, one, skinny fat is real. It is possible to be within your safe BMI rate, your safe range, but not look like a Biotype 1. Another reason why is because it is possible to be someone like Dwayne Johnson and have extra muscle mass on your body, which would put you into the overweight or obese category, but you most certainly are not overweight or obese. So that is the second body type standard, and just a few reasons why it's not accurate. The third standard is basal metabolic rate, or BMR. And that is the number of calories daily that your specific body requires just to function. And the reason that it is not accurate is because, again, skinny fat is a very real thing. And if you are doing a calculation like the Mifflin St. Gior or the Harris Benedict activity to come up with your BMR, neither of those are taking into account skinny fat. And so if you're using those standards, which are good scientific standards, we're not knocking any of these standards really, we're just saying that they aren't very accurate right now.
Okay.
If you are using those BMR standards, then it is scientifically accepted right now that 1 pound of muscle mass burns 6 calories daily, but 1 pound of skinny fat only burns 2 to 3 calories daily. So if you have skinny fat on your body where you should have muscle and muscle mass, like cellulite, then and you are using your standard BMR as your calorie guidance when you're trying to lose weight, you're likely still eating too many calories because you have skinny fat on your body where there should be muscle and muscle mass. So those are the 3 mainstream science and medical doctor body type standards. And the only body type that mainstream science recognizes is that Biotype 1. So I'll sort of pause here and see if you have any questions for me.
Well, I guess my question is, if those are the 3 types and none of them are accurate, I guess what I'm curious is it kind of not, is it just not giving the full picture? Is that a different way of saying the same thing? Or is it just not accurate?
It's pretty much the same thing. It's definitely not giving the full picture. So it's a scientific fact that any part of the human body can be underdeveloped. And that includes muscle and muscle mass. And that's really a genetic fact. And so if you are dealing with some part of your body that is underdeveloped and there's skinny fat there, then it's going to affect things like posture. And of course, as already mentioned, metabolism. So we came up with our body type standards, the 4 body types, by using basically logic and reason to come up with the 26 vertebrae in our body, the 7 cervical, the 12 thoracic, the 5 lumbar, the 1 sacrum, and the 1 coccyx. There are 26. And again, because it's a scientific genetic fact that any part of the human body can be underdeveloped, just as it's a scientific genetic fact that every vertebra houses a specific set of muscles. If any of those muscles are underdeveloped, it will directly affect your posture, no less. Again, as well as your metabolism. So we have up on our site, we have hundreds of scientific body type quizzes now, but we have a really good visual where we have a real life body type 1 up against a real life body type 2, up against a real life body type 3, and a body type 4. And you can see clearly the difference in the muscle mass in each of their backs. The body type 1 looks just like the scientific standard. So it is real, it does exist, it is a real standard, but the other 3 don't. And our body type 2 example is well within her safe BMI weight range, but she doesn't look like the body type 1 because she's missing muscle and muscle mass on her back. And really, relative to the specific vertebra that she's lacking muscle mass, and that really correlates to her entire body relative to those specific vertebrae. So that's a general breakdown of how we came to our body types. A body type 1 is 0 underdeveloped vertebrae. A body type 2 has 1 to 8. A body type 3 has 9 to 17. And a body type 4, like me, like I was born in, has 18 to 26. And that's directly relative to muscle and muscle mass. So is that making sense?
It is. I do have a couple of questions. One is, you said that you're born into this body type, which makes sense to me. But if you can develop those muscles, the muscle in your, I guess, in your back, can you change body type, or is it just something that's
great question. It's not easy. And right now, the exercises that I developed over the last 25 years, yes, I have. And you can see my actual profile up on the website. I'm scientific biotype quiz number 1. You can go to the Biotype Science data page on the website and scroll down to the bottom, and you can search for it and you can see my actual quiz. So yes, you can. Right now, those exercises, we still really hold them as experimental because we don't want to hurt anyone, basically. And it's taken me a lot of time to figure all those out, and there's been a lot of trial and error with it. So yes, it is possible. I have gone from a Biotype 4 to a Biotype 2, and you can see the actual results on my page. But that being said, our focus right now is really not on going from one Biotype to another. Our focus right now is helping people understand what is my real biotype and why. So up until we started our research in 2003, there was no biotype science. There were no scientific biotypes. There were the 3 biotypes, the endomorph, ectomorph, and mesomorph, but they're not based on any science whatsoever. They're just arbitrary, subjective shapes that folks like to use. But when you try and boil it all down and say, why do I look like an apple, or why do I look like a pear? There's no logic or reason to why. And so folks have been trying for a very long time to understand what their specific biotype is, why it is the shape that it is. But there was no science up until we started what we were doing. And so what we're trying to do is get people to understand why their body is the shape that it is and accept it for what it is. It is genetics, right? And so that is the first step, is really understanding why it is what it is and accepting it for what it is, because it's genetics, and then finding the best diet, exercise, and lifestyle to manage and maintain your specific body type. Once you have achieved that, then we're happy to talk to you further about the possibility of doing exercises to maybe find your way to a different body type if you're not already a body type 1. But that is our secondary goal right now, because what we're really focused on, what your show is really focused on, is wellness. And so is that making sense?
It is. And I like the idea of, because I just think that there's this, especially in the United States, this idea that we have to look a certain way, or, we have these unrealistic expectations. And if we could just enjoy our body for what it is and not expect an apple to be an orange, then life could be a lot sweeter and a lot more enjoyable, because an apple will never be an orange.
And that's our main worry, is we are well aware of what's going on up on social media. And there's the photoshopping and the filtering of images, and you have all, especially young people who see these unrealistic false images, and then they're trying to hold themselves to it. And many of them, their body type, their genetics simply will not allow that. And so they are eating unhealthy diets. They're eating unhealthy, they are doing unhealthy exercise routines, unhealthy lifestyles, and all of it is leading to a national health crisis that is not just physical, but it's also mental and emotional. And we're trying to educate folks on, this is why your body is the shape that it is, so that they can cut all that nonsense out and hopefully avoid all that and find a truly healthy diet, exercise, and lifestyle relative to their specific scientific body type.
And I think that is extremely important, because I just, I keep on comparing. I'm going to show my age again. I remember when Kate Moss was the epitome of gorgeous and beauty, and skinny bean pole and all this. Skinny. And now it's like the Kim Kardashians, and it's like, wow. And I mean, even in my lifetime, there's no way I could have been either one of those. But
me either. So up on our site, we have a celebrity biotype section, and we aren't doing that for vanity. We're doing it for the reason that you just did, is because people can identify with a celebrity.
Yeah.
And so someone like, it's really the whole Kardashian family. They have what we have labeled the Kardashian-Jenner gene, or the Jenner-Kardashian gene, where it appears that all of them have the same sacrum, the at least slightly underdeveloped sacrum, where they have skinny fat on their buttocks and upper thighs. And so it's just one example of how genetics can run through a family. The only one who doesn't right now is Kendall Jenner, but it's likely because she hasn't had a child yet. Once she has a child, she will likely experience the same thing. But it is good to see that things are changing and people are becoming more accepting of things. On the other side of that spectrum, though, what worries us there is the body positive movement and people essentially trying to normalize the disease of obesity, which is not healthy either. So there's a middle ground here where we give full kudos to Lizzo and Ashley Graham for their success and such. However, at some point in time, their weight issues are going to catch up with them, because it is a fact that obesity carries a plethora of health risks, of monetary risks, it's just not healthy. And so we're trying to find a balance here to where we are accepting of everyone's body type because of what it is in terms of their genetics, but as well, we're not trying to normalize obesity either, because it is truly a problem that we need to get under control.
I am 100% with you on that one. And my boyfriend and I talk about this all the time, because he's also a personal trainer. I'm a personal trainer. He's a personal trainer. And, I love people loving themselves, and I love people enjoying their bodies. But it's not like you go up to somebody with cancer and be like, "Wow, you've got cancer. Yeah, girl, work it." You wouldn't do that. No. But I don't think that somebody who is overweight, obese should be shamed either.
Oh, absolutely not. We won't tolerate that.
That's not okay. I am not okay with that. But I don't want it to be something that, gives people an excuse not to improve their own health.
Well said. And so that's why we came up with the scientific Biotype quiz and the scientific weight loss diary up online. We are not in competition with MyFitnessPal or Calorie King or Apple Health app. Those are all wonderful apps, and they can be used in harmony with our scientific weight loss diary. The point of our scientific weight loss diary is so that folks can go up on the website and track scientifically their diet, exercise, and lifestyle data. And they can invite their friends and family. It's free to join for a subscriber account. You can join in the conversation. You can support your loved one's journey. You can also invite your dietitian or your fitness pro, and they can come in and give advice. All comments on the site are moderated for the reasons that you just said. We will not tolerate any bullying, shaming, trolling, any of that whatsoever. But the idea of it is so that you can have your phone in hand, you can see all your data, you can see everything there, and you can hold yourself accountable while sharing your journey with everyone else that you want to. The final thing that I'll say on that is you can use a pen name, and none of the images that we require to process your scientific biotype quiz use a face, so that you can remain completely anonymous, and private. So we are on the same page with you on that. We don't want to normalize obesity, but we would like to find a way, and we have, to where we can help people on their journey in terms of losing weight.
Because shaming people and making them feel bad has never, if that worked, we'd all be,
great, I would.
We would all have these perfect lives of shaming ourselves into it.
Right. Right. I'm certain I would, because I was bullied and shamed.
Me too. And for different things, but yes. Okay. So on that note, we are at that time that it's time for us to go to a commercial break. So we're going to be back in just a moment. Okay. For those of you who are watching us live, thank you so much for joining us today. As I mentioned, it is time for those commercials. So we'll be right back after these messages. Are you someone who is struggling to move forward because you suffered a loss? Maybe you're even finding it difficult to complete the most basic tasks. Are you looking for a way to start enjoying life again without feeling guilty or the resistance to do so? Spiritual life coach Sarah Stockham saw a need for people who haven't learned how to grieve without putting their entire lives on pause. And so she created a program that solves this issue called Choosing Life Right Now. This program is simple and you can do it on your own. If you are ready to learn how to feel your grief while still being able to smile, to honor the sacredness of what took place as a loss, and yet still continue to live with joy, and if you'd like to take care of your whole being with grace and love, then I'd like to invite you to experience her new program called Choosing Life Right Now. Sarah is currently offering her program for the promotional price of $77, but it won't stay at this price for long. To learn more, check out her website. The address is on the screen.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, my name is Julianne Meyer, and you are watching Own Your Wellness. And today's special guest is Mark Nelson. Let's bring him back on. Welcome back. So I'm pretty excited about this conversation because, this is such a new area, even though it's not new. So, it's kind of like finally, it's like the light bulb is turned on and it's becoming common knowledge. But, something that I was thinking about during the commercial break was the fact that because this is newer, a lot of doctors probably wouldn't even have any clue about it.
They don't. And it's like the educational process in general, it is tough to educate people on it.
Yeah.
And we are definitely working on that, but folks have a tendency to get stuck in their ways. And I mean, even if you go up on Google and you type in Biotype, the endomorph, ectomorph, and mesomorph pop up all over the place. Mm-hmm. And Google is supposed to pride itself in, using the latest information and, real science and such. But right now, that's what we are up against, is educating people about this so that they understand what the actual Biotype science standards are, what the current ones are, why they are not accurate, and how ours fit into all of this. That we're not trying to usurp the current standards. We're simply trying to make them better so that they are more accurate and they apply to everyone more equally and just more accurately in general so that they can be healthier. Yes.
Well, I kind of think of it as something along the lines of the world isn't flat, it's round. It took a long time for people to come to that conclusion and that to be widely accepted as truth. So I think that we as people tend to not like the change, even if there's proof right in front of our faces.
Which is very well said. And I accept that as being a full-on truth because it is. But it can be frustrating at times because we get a lot of people who will, looking right in the eyes and saying, I believe the 3 Biotype science before I believe your science. And it's like, there is no 3 Biotype science. You are referencing something that doesn't exist. And it's really a slight. But you are right. It just takes time. And we realize that, and we accept it, and we are working hard to overcome that. So, yeah.
Well, you're pioneers, so
Yes. Yes,
you
we are.
have your machetes out and you're cutting down everything. Leading
Which,
the way.
which is very true for not just us, but for other entities like the blue zones, as I'm sure you
Mm,
probably know about. It's actually one of the diets up on the site that we don't necessarily push a specific diet because we believe that there are so many different types of bodies, and some
mhm,
work better with this diet and some work better with that diet. But what we do have up on the site that we lean more towards is the blue zone Mediterranean diet. And
mm.
that's simply because the blue zones are 5 areas globally that have been well researched at this point, and they are places where people live well into their hundreds in a
Mhm.
healthy way. It's not like here in the States where you're popping pills and you're just trying to get to 80.
Yeah.
There, they are actually living healthy, normal lives into their hundreds because of their diet, exercise, and lifestyle. And
Mhm.
so, and then of course, we know that the Mediterranean diet is also a solid diet, that it's got a lot of science behind it. So we just sort of combine those two things. And that's the diet that we highly recommend because it's flexible. It's
Mhm.
mostly vegetarian, but you can still do meat. It focuses on middle of the food chain foods like fish and such, so that you are getting less mercury in terms of things out of the ocean and such. But it's just a really good all around rounded diet that we like to focus on. The same is true with any exercises. We have a whole list of different exercises up on the site. Most people don't realize that walking is actually the best exercise that you can do. Just
Yeah.
basic, simple walking that just requires a good pair of shoes and somewhere to go and walk safely. And so, but again, we have a full list. If you like high intensity, that has its place.
Mhm.
Whatever, we have a full list of diet and exercises so that you can find what's best for you, what works best for you and your lifestyle. And then, of course, finally is lifestyle in general. And we are big advocates of high quality sleep and making sure that you're doing everything in your power to get the best sleep that you possibly can so that
Mhm.
your body can actually heal and regenerate. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's funny that you'd say, well, it's not funny that you would say that because that is a proponent to health. It's just that on Monday this week, we had a guest on that was talking about the importance of sleep, that and how the brain cleans itself while you're sleeping. So,
It
you know,
does.
I don't
And
think people really understand or realize just how important sleep is, especially if they want to lose weight. I mean,
yes, and that
that's
is
part
a
of
that is
it.
a direct correlation, and the science is becoming more and more clear on that. That if you want to lose weight, you need to get a good night's sleep,
Yeah,
and every night, not just every now and then. And
exactly.
so, for folks like you and I who are getting older, sleep is even that much more important. When
It
you're
is.
younger, you might get away with late nights and not getting the sleep that you need, but it will gradually wear on you. And for some people, it won't wear as much, but for other people, it probably will. So even when you're young, getting really good sleep is really important. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and the odds of dementia increase by 30% if you don't get enough sleep. So,
Sleep. Yes.
sleep, yes.
And so, several other areas that you in bringing up dementia, excuse me, is so back in the late 60s, maybe it was the 70s, the sugar industry, they did research on their own product and found that it was actually a serious problem in terms of obesity and just
Yep.
ruining the health of the human body. And so, because they were more interested in profits, they ended up blaming it on saturated fat, or on fat in
Exactly.
general. And the problem with that is that now we're finding that because fat is so important to the human body, good
Mhm.
quality fats are so important to the human body that uh, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and other type diseases are likely linked to these low fat diets that have been pushed since the late 70s for nonsense reasons. And
Yep.
sugar in general, as you probably know, yeah, if you can cut sugar out of your diet and keep the amount of sugar daily under 7 teaspoons. Is it tablespoons or no. Keep it
It's
as
teaspoons.
low as possible.
Yeah, exactly. No, I have this or I wouldn't call her a mentor, but somebody I used to work with, and something that she said that's always stuck with me, and I just think it's the most hilarious thing, is she calls it recreational sugar.
But it's true, right? It's a drug.
It really is. It is so true. It's a little disturbing how true it is, and just how much it eats your brain even. So
one of my favorite movies is Men in Black 3, and when Tommy Lee Jones asks Will Smith, what's the most destructive force in the universe, and Will Smith says sugar. He's right on. It really is that bad, and it is in everything. And people don't even really give it a second thought, but you really should read the label. If it's one of the top 5 ingredients, don't buy the product. Unless it's your spoil yourself product, which is your in moderation. Like I love Ben & Jerry's ice cream, and I eat it once in a blue moon, but I do because you can't spoil yourself every now and then.
Well, that's the thing. It's not about denying little pleasures, but it's also kind of like, I don't drink anymore. It's just not good for me. And I don't really like the taste either. So it's not like it would be a super pleasurable thing for me to have, say, a glass of wine. But ice cream, I'm with you on that one. And that's why I don't keep it in the house. Because I will get up in the middle of the night and go down and eat it if I have it in the house. So
that is so me. It's why I just won't buy it. I won't have it in the house because if it's here, I will definitely eat it. And I honestly don't do alcohol anymore either. Maybe once a year, like a beer on New Year's, maybe. Yeah. But I just don't, because more and more research is coming out that shows that alcohol really is not good for the human body at all. And for folks like you and I, who I'd like to live as long as possible, as healthy as possible. And to do that means you're going to have to give up things like sugar and alcohol, at least for the most part, unfortunately.
And the beautiful part about that is that your taste buds change.
They do.
So when they change, you don't feel like you're missing out.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I have found that there are other, like I have refallen in love with fruit. And recently, and I realize that it's relatively high in sugar, but I've fallen in love with dates, and they're just delicious, and they're super healthy so long as you do it in moderation. Exactly. And that's really my problem, is keeping things like that to moderation. And it's hard to just, you can't just buy them like 1, 2, or 3. They come in like a
exactly.
Right? But anyways, yeah.
Well, that's the thing too. You also have to understand what your triggers are, because there's certain foods that I can't have in the house. Ice cream is one of them. Cheese is another.
Same here.
I can't have those things in my house because I will eat them. Yeah. I have no off switch. Once
I don't either. I don't either. Now, here's something that might be a good thing for me, and I would never say that this was a good thing, but in context of our conversation here, it is. I've actually developed an allergy recently to whey protein, so I can't do dairy anymore because it gives me an irregular heartbeat. So that was kind of maybe a good thing, because now I know I can't eat it at all because, so anyways, maybe that's a
weird though. But the thing that's fascinating to me is how I think it's only 1 in 7 people who are told by their cardiologist that if they don't change their diet, they will die. No ifs, ands, or buts. Yeah. They will die. Only 1 in 7 actually changes their diet.
It's crazy.
Disturbing to me. I mean, I guess because you're not on the table or on the ground at that particular moment, but I don't really understand that.
I don't either. I really don't. But I see it as really as the same thing as when I was younger. I actually started eating a very healthy diet when I was in college with no internet and no way to learn much about it at all. So I did my best at the time, especially when I first started being a vegetarian. And I really wish that I had more information, but I recall how much I was made fun of and how much people thought I was absolutely out of my mind for
Yep.
even trying a vegetarian diet or even trying to actually be healthy. And whenever I
Uh-huh.
would bring that up, like you realize that this diet that you're eating is going to lead to a shorter life. It was really the same response. Oh, who cares? And
Yeah.
I didn't understand it then, and I really don't understand it now. I'm hoping that folks are becoming more aware of things, but it seems like folks just don't care.
Well, it's interesting though, because I actually was training a client this morning who happens to be 72. And we were talking about her neighbor who's 80, who just was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And we were talking about how he's going to go in and have this surgery to get it removed. And I said, man, I don't know that I would do that at 80 because, of like the
High risk.
recovery. And she said, yeah, there's so many times when you're younger, you think,
No
pull the
problem.
plug or, all this stuff. But as soon as you get older, it's like you're holding on for dear life.
You are, and I am truly hoping that our science catches up with our aging processes so that we can
Yeah.
extend our lives. But on the other hand, the problem with that is the planet's already horribly overpopulated, and we're not doing anything about that right now. So it's not like we can. It's not like if science were to get to a point where it can extend our lives to 120 years or 200 years or 500 years. It's not.
We're going to extinct ourselves.
We're going to extinct ourselves because the planet can't support 8 billion people, let alone probably 2 or 3 billion people.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's a big worry with things is we've got to be more careful and conscious of our reproduction and our health in general.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a tricky place to be, and it's a whole other conversation. But I'm there with you. I am right now. I am holding on for dear life because as you age and you start to see all these things happening, you're like, God, aging sucks. Right? And I'm really hoping that science helps out, but at the same time, I'm a bit wary of it for all the reasons that I just mentioned. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm hoping that we can find a balance.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the planet has a way of doing things for us. So
It does. It does. I look at it like we're kind of like a virus right now, and the planet currently has a fever, and
Yeah.
it's working on making itself better, just like our body would if we had a virus that it didn't want, right? And so,
Exactly.
unfortunately, that's just how things work, and especially for younger generations. I feel for my nephews and nieces because they're all young, and instead of really, I didn't have to worry about any of this. I'm sure you probably didn't when you were growing up. It just wasn't a thought.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's like most young people a lot of young people are dealing with this stress of wondering what kind of future they really have. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we get our act together here sooner than later, but my optimism on that is waning as each day passes because it just doesn't look like we're moving fast enough. Hopefully that changes.
Yes, exactly. But anyway,
Yeah.
I think which is fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
But I do want to get back a little bit more to, these different body types. We don't have a ton of time left, but there was a question that I had, and I think I already answered it in my own mind, but I'm curious. Now you're talking about the muscles and the spine. Now, what about scoliosis? Is that have to do with the muscles too, or is that something that's just like a deformity?
It really is. So basically, it's just a type of disease, and it's basically so the only way that you wouldn't be, and you technically still would be a standard Biotype 1, but it would be if you were diagnosed by a doctor with something like scoliosis. And then, of course, that is likely genetics. I don't know what else it would be. And it's simply an underdevelopment of the human body relative to the spine, the vertebra, and the muscles relative to all that. So, yes.
That's fascinating to me. So since you're a researcher, What do you, I mean, how do you do experiments? Are you designing? I know that you've been coming up with exercises and things like that, but what does that mean?
So really, it was figuring out what was wrong with my body first, because it
Mhm.
was when I would bring this up to pretty much anyone, everyone thought I was just absolutely crazy because the doctor said I was totally normal. I was well within my safe BMI weight range. There is
Mhm.
nothing to look at here. There are no problems. Just go and live your life and stop complaining about whatever. And
Mhm.
so it really started with me observing my own body and then doing the actual research and figuring out what is wrong with my body. Why do I have fat all over my body, skinny fat all over my body?
Mhm.
And how do I actually define that? So early on, it was just fat because there was no skinny fat. And
Mhm.
then once all these other terms started to actually come into to play, then I sort of built the skinny fat part of things. And then once that happened, it was like, now how do I apply this to other people safely
Mhm.
so that, and then of course the pandemic came on. So our original goal was to open up a research center and actually do use an MRI so that we could really see, where
Yeah.
is this person missing muscle and muscle mass, yada yada. But then when the pandemic hit, it was like, well, that's not going to really happen. So what's another way that we can do this? And that's when I came up with the scientific Biotype quiz, and it's started very very raw, and it has and you can see some of our early quizzes are really really raw. But as we grew and we started to bring in more data and understand what the current science is saying,
Mhm.
we would tweak that. And so we came up with the diet scores, the diet, exercise, and lifestyle scores, which use the latest science. So in terms of diet, we've looked at all of the different diets, and we have come to what science says is really the best type of diet, and that technically is a vegetarian omnivore diet. And I realize that that's a relatively vague term, and, and we can apply that to other types of diets, but that was a variable. And then science says, and this is now changing also, but science says that 1 glass of alcohol daily for a woman, 2 glasses
Mhm.
for a man. The most recent research says it's probably more like half a glass for a woman and 1 glass for a man. But we basically just took all of the current science and we built equations, and so that when someone takes the actual scientific Biotype quiz, it will calculate everything and it will give you a relatively accurate. It's a basic quiz. It's not like,
Yeah.
but all things relative. It will give you an accurate diet, exercise, and lifestyle score. We also for the exercise score, we use the Harris Benedict activity score, and we use the Mifflin St. Gior. We take into account your resistance and cardio exercise, as well as your work activity score, your general work activity to calculate that score. And then in terms of the lifestyle score, we take into account sleep and stress are the two main ones, but then also your what do you do? Do you like hiking? Do you like spending
Mhm.
time with friends? Yada yada. And so we can calculate a relatively accurate science-based diet, exercise, and lifestyle score using all that. And then we have our metabolism scores, which we also are able to calculate in skinny fat for our metabolism score, so that we can give folks the standard BMR score and then our adjusted BMR score. If you have more skinny fat on your body would require less calories, so that it gives you a more, at least a more accurate estimate of what your
Uh-huh.
real BMR calories are relative to how much skinny fat that you have on your body. So, yeah.
No, I love that because, as a personal trainer and a nutrition coach as well, there's just so many things that, I'm always talking about. Like, it's just the science is out there that's popular doesn't cover it. And I've never had like what you're talking about. I've never had this information before. So I'm like, oh, finally.
And as a fitness pro, your clients, your customers, whatever the proper word is, can come and take the actual quiz, and then they can send you the link. You can see it all, and then you can make comments on it and such, so that you at least have a scientific basis. And if they use the and if they use the scientific weight loss diary, you can see all their food entries. You can see what they're actually eating, yada yada. So it's not just they're showing up for a session with you and you say, hey, how was your diet? And they say it was great. I'm really following it well. You now can actually go and look and see, are they really following it well? Yada yada. So that was our goal here.
Well, it kind of makes me think too of those people that go into the hairdresser saying, bringing in a picture of a haircut of somebody that's like 20, 30 years younger saying, I want to look like her.
Right. Good luck.
That's a great idea. You're not going to look like her no matter what, even if it's the exact same haircut. But
not a magician.
You look your best version of you.
Yes. And so that is it, though, is we're trying to find the best version of you relative to all those variables, and holding people to a standard that they can actually truly meet, that isn't just this crazy nonsense that you're finding up on social media and elsewhere. So hopefully that makes sense to your listeners, and they'll at least go and check out what we're doing up at fellow1.com.
Exactly. So once again, fellow1.com for all of you who are watching and listening. Boop, 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 boop. Right there. Take a look. Go check it out. We only have about maybe 2 minutes left. Is there any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience?
In all my time of doing this, what I found is that it was really understanding my own body and the diet, exercise, and lifestyle that worked best for me. And I had been through all the fads and gimmicks and all the nonsense, and it took a lot of work to figure that out. It took work to figure out what foods worked best for my body and foods that did not and such. So you have to be willing to put the time and the effort in to learn it. There is no magic pill or quick fix. It's just that's simply not how it works. So if you're willing to put the time and the effort in to figure out what your biotype is, what diet, exercise, and lifestyle works best for you, our site is a good place to go and start that journey.
I love that. Yes, we do live in a microwave society, so you have to. But you know what? If you want that gourmet meal, you got to put in the work. So
you really do.
Yeah, indeed. But you get to enjoy it too. So it's not all negative, as they say.
Well said. And that's really it. Is now that I'm in a healthier place and my body is much stronger because of all the muscle that I have added to it. Mm-hmm. I get to actually enjoy it. I wish I was a bit younger so that I could enjoy it in that respect. But all things relative, I'm very happy that I have gotten to the place that I have. But it took a lot of hard work.
Yeah, exactly. Amen. Well, Mark, that is all the time that we have today. I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure listening to you explain things and give us some new information.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Hope to see you again soon. And folks, that's all the time we have. So it's time for us to go until next week. We will see you soon. Enjoy your weekend.